things come together to form cyberculture. All of these communities, all of these individuals connecting to form cyberculture, one culture in which we all participate. It's rather funny to me how something so inherently silly can have such a major effect on the way we communicate with one another. And not only is it connecting individuals and communities, it's connecting generations as well. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard generations older than myself or even older than my parents say that they're just writing off internet memes. They don't need to spend time with them and they don't need to understand them. They're silly internet jokes. But many people felt this way about other innovations in the past. The internet, Facebook, smartphones, and even paper. When paper as we know it today was gaining popularity, older generations wrote it off and said that tablet writing was much more permanent and respected, and that paper was an innovation that wouldn't last. Memes are no paper, for now. But meme culture will only continue to grow, and there's no stopping it, and it will continue to affect the way we communicate with one another in the future. Maybe someday, internet meme creation will be a skill essential to successful relationships, or even the job market. Maybe it already is.
Richard Dawkins coined the term meme in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene. And what he proposed was that human culture was composed, at least in part, of elements, units, that were like genes in that they were copied and copied and copied and copied and copied. And it was the differential copying, the differential replication of these items, these memes, that accounted for the excellent design of so much in human culture. This is a very repugnant and offensive idea to many people, especially in the humanities. They wanted to hang on to the idea of the godlike genius creator who, out of sheer conscious, brilliant comprehension, makes all these wonderful things, whether they're poems or bridges or whatever. He was saying, in effect, well, yes, people do make amazing things, but if you look at the projects in detail, you see that they couldn't do that if they hadn't filled their head with all these informational things, which are like genes, which are also information, but they're not passed down through the germline. They're not passed down through the sperm and the egg. You don't get them with your genes, you get them from the ambient culture, from your parents, from your peers, from the society in which you're raised. It requires perception. A lot of people think, well, wait a minute, there's a huge disanalogy here. Genes are DNA. What's the DNA of memes? And the first thing you have to appreciate is, no, genes aren't DNA. Genes are the information carried by the DNA. Genes are no more DNA than poems are made of ink. I mean, you can send somebody a poem that's written in ink, or you can say it aloud. There's many different ways of transmitting that poem or saving that poem from one place to another. The same thing is true of genes. Once you get used to thinking of genes as not DNA, but the information carried by the patterns of the nucleotides in DNA, then you can see that there really is a nice parallel. Well then, what's playing the role of DNA in the land of culture? What are the physical implementations? Well, they're wonderfully various. There is ink on paper. There's lines carved into stones. There's lines drawn in the sand. There's skywriting. And, of course, there's what we're doing right now. There's audible language. And one of the great features of language, not sufficiently appreciated by those who aren't linguists, is that what makes language a potent medium for the transmission of information is that it's digitized in the same way that DNA is digitized. It's composed of fundamental elements. In the case of DNA, it's A, C, G, T, 4 different nucleotides. In the case of language, it's 20 to 30 phonemes. We are designed to pick up the phonemes of our native language and then automatically to categorize incoming utterances by correcting them to the norm of whatever the phonemes in our language are. And it doesn't matter whether I say dog or dog or dog or dog or dog. It all comes out as dog. Doesn't take any effort to recognize that these are all tokens of the same type. That's digitization. And that's what makes it possible to transmit information from one person to another, and the person in the middle doesn't have to understand what it means. All they have to do is copy the sequence of phonemes and the message will get through. It looks as if we're pretty stupid. We're just walking, breathing vectors that are carrying all these memes around in our heads, sort of like having a cold, like viruses. And they are like viruses. And the first memes were even more like viruses because they weren't particularly useful. They were just habits that were catchy in one way or another, and they spread or not. And they didn't have to do any good. They just had to be not too harmful. And they kept, as long as their vectors stayed alive and spread them, then they could spread. They could thrive just like the cold virus. Cold virus isn't for anything except for making more copies of the cold virus, and early memes were just like that. But eventually, competition for utility arose, and now memes, whether they were words or other ways of doing things that actually were of benefit, would spread differentially because they were better ways of doing things that could be not even recognized. It's just that those who adopted them fared better than those who didn't. And before you know it, you have competitive differential replication of cultural items. And that's what does all the heavy lifting of design work and getting human culture off the ground. It's only very recently that we've had people who style themselves as meme creators, as designers of memes. And think about coined words. You have a vocabulary of 50, 60, 70,000 words. Very few of them were deliberately coined by anybody. Yet they're all useful, and they are all robust enough to survive until they go extinct. Words go extinct all the time. So it is with culture much more generally. It's composed of elements which have histories, they have lineages, they can combine in ways that genes normally don't, but can. And the result is this tremendous creative stew of differential replication, creating ideas that people latch onto and benefit from without having to understand why they're good or how they're good, and they never would have invented them themselves. That is a brilliant piece of engineering, and nobody invented it.
Welcome, guys, to this latest installment titled Meme Control, where once again we will be diving and digging a little bit deeper into the familiar rabbit hole here at Shit Video Productions of Memetics. And off the bat, we're going to look at an article from 1996, 25 years ago. It was published on Wired magazines, or in Wired magazine, and republished on their website. And it is titled Memetic Engineering. And it starts out by saying, what if culture and even consciousness itself were nothing more than an artifact of the interaction of selfish means that were ideas capable of replicating and co-evolving with supreme indifference to their impact on human hosts? A meme-centered paradigm of human culture and consciousness is, to say the least, disconcerting. In Consciousness Explained, cognitive theorist Daniel Dennett, who we just heard from at the beginning of this episode, captures the horror graphically. If not you felt that he captured the graphics horrifically, is down to you. But the author does go on to say he doesn't know about you, but he's not initially attracted by the idea of his brain being a dung heap of sorts in which larvae of other people's ideas renew themselves before sending out copies of themselves in an informational dysphoria. It does seem to rob the author of his mind and his mind of its importance. And he goes on to say, as an author and a critic, who is in charge according to this vision? Is it ourselves, or is it the memes that are implanted in our minds? A meme-focused vision of culture and consciousness acknowledges forthrightly that memes are not mere random effluvia of human experience, but powerful control mechanisms that impose a largely invisible deep structure on a wide range of complex phenomena. And those complex phenomena could include language, scientific thinking, political behavior, productive work, religion, philosophical discourse, and even history itself. But consider the matter more closely. What if it were possible to construct a new science of the meme called memetic engineering that would be analogous to the discipline of genetic engineering? Such a science would allow us to manipulate complex patterns of replicating memes and achieve consistent and predictable manifestations in the form of a precisely altered cultural phenotype. Who would then be in charge of the course of cultural evolution? Ourselves or the selfish, in contemporary times, in brackets, social media memes? It may sound like science fiction, but a possible precursor to memetic engineering has already been studied at the Santa Fe Institute. Again, this is back in 1996 when they'd already carried out studies at the Santa Fe Institute, and it was called the 2050 Project. It was an effort jointly pursued by SFI and the World Resources Institute, and they used a computer modeling tool called Sugarscape to construct a cartoon history that mimics the true history of ancient Native American tribes. And then it assesses the impact of changes in various cultural inputs, availability of resources, migration patterns, altered assumptions concerning diffusion of cultural mores on alternative histories that might have transpired but were foreclosed by intervening events in real history. So the objectives of this research were breathtaking in their implications, and they were described by the investigators in Growing Artificial Societies and Social Science from the Bottoms Up, a project monograph. The board aim of this research is to begin the development of a more unified social science, or a more unified society that can be molded and modeled according to the memes that are distributed on a regular basis that will influence the minds and the behavioral patterns of the people that are recipients to them. In a terrestrial environment that simulates demographs, the transmission of cultural conflicts, economics, disease, and the emergence of groups and co-adaptation within the environment, all from the bottom up, can be created and manipulated through the course of memetics. Research initiatives like the 2050 Project hold out the prospect of such a new kind of social science. Bear in mind, guys, this was 25 years ago, where this new kind of social science is now everyday practice. As well as the possibility of this new science, memetic engineering, and while predictions about the pace of scientific innovation are notoriously risky, the author's guess is that by the beginning of the 21st century, the embryonic field of a computer-based memetic studies will either reveal itself as an intellectual dry hole, or it will prove to be a technology of extraordinary power. We are 21 years in to the 21st century, and it seems to me, at least, that the latter of those two predictions has come to be, that technology has become an extraordinary power, and the technology of memetics has become an extraordinary power within the extraordinary power of technology itself. If, the author goes on to say, the second scenario comes to pass, which it has, what are the long-term implications for our self-image as a species, endowed as we are with at least the illusion of free will, and blessed perhaps uniquely among all the creatures on this earth with the baffling gift of conscious thought? First, the dark scenario. Memes might come to be viewed explicitly as primary actors in the drama of human history, which they are. Memes that circulate on social media do provide social commentary on contemporary times, as well as influence the minds of the masses into certain demographics into believing what is information and what is news, when really and truly all it is propaganda and thought implantation for the memetic engineering, and engineering a memetic culture or subculture, if you will, of people that think, behave and act the same and repeat the same pre-designed, pre-approved rhetorics. Now, in Daniel Dennett's vision, he prophesied that the human mind would become a mere meat computer, and that conscious human beings would become puppets that are dancing to the blind watchmaker's hidden melodies. But is this a fair reading of the philosophical implications of memes? Perhaps not, if we consider the matter carefully. And he goes on to quote somebody from another book. But understanding the often unconscious nature of genetic control is the first step towards understanding that we are all puppets, and that our best hope for even partial liberation is to try to decipher the logic of the puppeteer, which is a little bit what I try to do with decoding our reality. Although if not, I am accurately decoding reality, that probably lays just within the mind of myself. You can drop your comments below if you think I've done a good or half-hearted job of decoding reality or not right now. But so in the reclaim of human culture, the author finalizes by saying, then our best hope for eventual liberation from an endless succession of dangerous ideologies and blinding prejudices, our best chance for overthrowing the tyranny exercised by blindly replicating means indifferent to their often devastating impact on the moral vessels they may selfishly commandeer, may lie in a 21st enlightenment centered at least in part of a new rigorous, almost said religious then, a new rigorous science of the meme. So guys, memes are something that we see each and every day on social media, and even if we share and agree with them or copy and paste them or pay attention to them, one way or another they enter our mind on a subconscious or fully conscious level. As I said, if we take a conscious effort to stop, share and agree that meme, it is implanted. But even if we are scrolling through our news feed and scroll past that news feed, that meme on our news feed, the message of that meme is still implanted within the mind. So as I said, we are going to be hearing from Richard Dawkins next, and then we are going to be looking into military memetics and memetic warfare. Yes, those are both things. Before we do have a look at a few examples of contemporary modern day memetics that I'm sure many of you may have encountered in your daily social media surfing. So stay tuned, guys. Meme control will continue.
Sense. Wherever you have memes that are copied from one brain to another, you potentially have the possibility of a kind of natural selection. Now, it's a big step from that to say there actually is natural selection. Presumably, if we go with the analogy of the tunes, some tunes are more likely to be whistled and copied than others because they're just better tunes. They're more catchy. We actually use the word catchy. So there is a kind of natural selection that we all sort of know about. Various objections have been raised to the theory of memes, and by the way, I should add that I only ever proposed it in order to downplay the gene as the only unit of natural selection. I wanted to say, look, you've just read this book, The Selfish Gene, which is all about genes as the level at which natural selection acts. It doesn't have to be that way. The level of natural selection is certainly not the individual organism, nor is it the group. But it could be some other kind of molecule on another planet, or it could be the meme on this planet. I wasn't intending it to be a contribution to the theory of human culture. Others have tried to make it so, which is fine. I'm delighted that they have. I mean, Dan Dennett and Susan Blackmore, for example. Objections have been raised to it, like the mutation rate's too high. The thing about genes is that they are exceedingly accurately copied. Memes are not. Let's imagine the game that Americans call telephone and we here call Chinese whispers, where you have a line of people and I whisper a rhyme into the ear of the first person, who whispers the rhyme into the ear of the next person, who whispers it into the next one, and so on. And the funny part of the game is that usually the rhyme becomes completely garbled by the time it reaches the other end. But if the rhyme was sufficiently short and easy to remember, if it were just something very short, like too many cooks spoil the broth, that would probably get to the end of 20 people without mutating. So we all know that it's perfectly possible for unmutated memes to survive. But we all know it because we all speak English. We all learn an English vocabulary, and we can all repeat what other people have said in our native language. And it doesn't matter that some of us say it in an English accent and some in a Scottish accent and some in an American accent, some in a female voice, some in a male voice. These are all trivial mutations, and they're trivial in exactly the sense, in precisely the sense that they don't get copied from one generation of the game of Chinese whispers to the other. I mean, let's persist with this example. I whisper into the ear of the first person a rhyme. This first person whispers the same rhyme into the ear of the next person, but she does it in a female voice. But it doesn't matter. the message survives. The next person does it in an Irish accent. It doesn't matter. The message survives. The exact words survive. And there's a perfectly good operational test of this. If you take 20 people and play Chinese whispers, and you then take a tape recording of each person's whispering, and you've got 20 tapes now, 20 tape recordings, and you then find an independent observer, and you say, here are these 20 tape recordings, put them in order, just listen to them and see if you can work out which was the first generation, which the second generation, which the third, and so on. They won't be able to do it unless there's a definite mutation, a word changes, then they'll do it. But if it's just a change of accent, a change of pitch of voice, there will be nothing, there'll be no consistent change as you go down the generations. Generation 3 and generation 17 will be indistinguishable as far as the actual words are concerned. Now, that would probably be true if it's a very simple rhyme in a language that all the people in the line understand. But if they're English speakers and the rhyme is a rhyme in Bulgarian, then what will pass down the line will mutate very rapidly, because all that the people can possibly do is repeat it phonetically, and it'll come out completely garbled by the time it gets to the other end. That's a bad meme. But the mere fact that it's, I don't think anybody will dispute that it's obvious that provided that the rhyme is short and in a language that everybody in the line understands, in most cases, or in many cases at least, it's sufficient to say in many cases it will survive intact. And the important point is that you will not be able to tell the order in which those messages were enunciated.
Here we are at throughthelookingGlassNews.wordpress.com, and that little header says there, "We are all mad here. How do you know I'm mad? You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here." And that might be applicable to some of you regular offenders who keep coming back to Reality Decoded for more shit video productions. But we are about to go through the looking glass, indeed, and we are going to scratch the surface. It's something that is known as military memetics, and this particular tutorial from Robotic Technology Inc. was presented back in 2006, between 2006 and 2009, to good old DARPA. And after this, we will have a little look at DARPA's involvement in memetics. But we are, as I said, gonna scratch the surface, because this, believe it or not, military memetics is a rabbit hole all of its own, which could at least 6 parts to cover all that is contained within this tutorial that was presented, as I said, to DARPA around 12, 13, maybe even 14 years ago. But anyway, we're not going to look at too much of part 1 in particular. But we are going to read the headline there. The purpose of military memetics. Program memetics as a scientific discipline. Meme definitions are some of the things included. And Robot Technology Inc. tutorial on military memetics. The potential of military worth of memetics. As I said, this is got an awful lot of information in ground to cover. But it does say here, just to confirm what I told you, that this presentation is based on projects Robotic Technology Inc. performed for the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, aka DARPA, between 2006 and 2009. And we thank DARPA for their vision and support. Make of that what you will. I'm not somebody that would particularly go out of my way to thank DARPA for everything, particularly because all of the goings on that DARPA seem to be doing that seem to be very, very nefarious. But anyway, part one of the 6-part tutorial by Dr. Robert Finkelstein. That sounds like a character from UHF rather, the Weird Al Yankovic movie from the 1980s. But he is the president of Robotic Technology Inc. And the presentation was based on programs Robotic Technology Inc. performed for DARPA during the time that we just said. And the PDF is available for download at the Robotic Technology website, and you could click the link if you were on the website of your phone. But the document is 152 slides and covers the following subjects. We're going to look at the subjects, and we're going to look at one subject in particular. As I said, you can download the full tutorial in one article if you choose to. And as I said, I'm not going to, because it would take forever and a day to get through, although not literally forever and a day. That was just a figure of speech. But part one was an introduction, an executive summary, and a highlight of the purpose of military memetics. The part two was memetics, metrics, and submetrics. Part 3 was potential military worth of memetics. Part 4, which is what we're going to be looking at, memes, narrative, and in particular social media and culture, and how military memetics can influence and control those things. Part 5 was memetics and true believers, and part 6 was neuroeconomics and memetics. But as I said, we're not going to look too much in it. It is very, very, very long-winded and contains an awful lot of information. But it was basically designed to sort of combat, or the purpose that they said it was designed for was to combat radicalized terrorism, in particular ISIS and Al-Qaeda types. And they figured that if we could infiltrate these subcultures at a grassroots level and then change the way they believe, think, and talk through a series of controlled memes, they would then become a less than hostile enemy and would be easier to defeat and control. But as I said, very, very, very long-winded article in itself, with a hell of a lot of information that we could cover and would take an awful lot of time. But I'm going to quickly shut down now and take you over to part 4, which is about social media memes and how the military is going to influence those. So this is part 4. Of the military memetics tutorial presented to DARPA by the Robotic Technology Inc. And part 4 concentrates on memes, the narrative, and social media and culture. Now, we're not going to spend too much time reading every last word of this, because pretty much it just sort of gives highlights as what is contained within the slideshow of part 4. This is just sort of a list of what is included. This isn't sort of the information itself. But it does say that social media have and smartphones have become a highly effective and efficient means for propagating memes and for spreading them. And they are wonderful and effective, efficient tools for state and non-state actors and for strategic and tactical objectives. Interesting that they used the term actors rather than individuals, but they can also, social media can use memes, and they use the example of the Middle Eastern uprising as how they can efficiently create, fuel, and carry out such agendas if they so desired. But they are, or they were back then in 2006 and up to 2009, creating tools and techniques that would rapidly detect, identify, and evaluate memes propagated by social media, and then to be able to rapidly create and propagate counter memes to combat the undesirable memes. And they did also say that a framework for a meme war is a meme control center. And what exactly is a meme control center? Well, funny you should ask, because this is what a meme control center is. In its concept, which is probably active and up and running now, and it pretty much is up and running under a different name. We'll find out what that is called now shortly. But in its concept, the meme control center would consist of a meme processing center and a counter meme processing center. So it's an MPC and CPC. A Memetics for Intelligence and National Defense Research and a Development Center provides the tools and techniques implied by the MPC and the CPC. So that's the Counter Meme Processing Center and the Meme Processing Center. The Meme Processing Center is highly automated with, for example, information mining and semantic processing. So when they say highly automated, they mean artificially intelligent algorithms that data collection websites and then use the data through a series of processing to find out the best ways to propagate new memes to control the desired targets. The CPC, and remember this is the counter meme patrol. What is it? See, I've forgotten already. It is processing. My forgiveness is begged there. So anyway, the counter meme processing center is to include a multidisciplinary meme engineering staff that would contain cultural anthropologists, linguistics, semanticists, if I'm saying that right, excuse me, he's got too many T's and C's, psychologists, social network analysts, OR analysts, intelligence, and this is the most disturbing name on the list, psychological operation analysts, as well as economists. Now, these are all people that they feel need to be in the counter meme processing center rather than the meme processing center. And make of that why you will, why they would need such highly intelligent people, including psychological operation analysts, as well as psychologists and social media network analysts. But it goes on to sort of say how culture, values, and such forth are created through a series of memes and how they can be controlled through memes, and it does give a few graphics and examples for the show, for the slideshow, but we're not going to spend too much on it there, except for I am going to say a narrative is a long story, is a story. It's long or it is short, past or present, or future, with or without much detail and told for any purpose, official or unofficial. Cultural narratives are important in forming and maintaining cultures of nations or stroke other groups, in giving them a sense of identity and purpose to individuals within a culture or subculture. National and strategic narratives describe the core interests of a nation and provide a foundation of statecraft and national security. And an example given is the United States post-World War I strategic narrative provided the base for the global struggle against communism. But as I say, guys, we're not going to go too much deeper into this. If you do wish to look into it on your own, you can do so. I'm not going to provide you links in the description because that would just be breastfeeding you, and technically you would just be memetically researching what I've already researched. But Robotic Technology Inc. tutorial on military memetics is all you need to know, and put that in a search engine of your choice. So as I say, guys, memetical warfare, military memetics are things that exist, and we started out looking at an organization that carried out a presentation and tutorial for DARPA. What did DARPA do with that information after that tutorial? We're about to find out. Here we are at the DARPA website, where after they were tuitioned by the Robotic Technologies Inc. on military memetics, they went away and they set up their own meme processing center / counter meme processing center, and they named it the Narrative Networks Project. And this is a very short little bit of a paragraph on their website, and it goes to say, why do people accept and act on certain kinds of information while dismissing others? Why are some narrative themes successful at building support for terrorism? And what role can narratives play in causing and helping to treat post-traumatic stress disorder? These questions deal with the role narratives that play in human psychology and sociology, and their answers have strategic implications for defense missions. DARPA launched the Narrative Networks program to understand how narratives influence human cognition and behavior, and they apply those findings in international security contexts. The program aims to address the factors that contribute to radicalization, violent social mobilization, insurgency, and terrorism among foreign populations, and of course domestic populations and social media populations in particular, and to support conflict prevention and resolution, effective communication in innovative PTSD treatments. Although it doesn't really go very much into telling anything about how it's going to be innovative in treating PTSD sufferers. But it does go on to say how narratives may consolidate memory, they may shape motions, and they may cue heuristics and biases in judgment. They may influence group decisions. To determine their influence on cognitive functions requires a working theory of narratives and an understanding of what role they play in security contexts, and an examination of how to systematically analyze narratives and their psychological or neurobiological impact. Narrative Networks has 3 parallel tracks of research and developments. 1. Development quantitative analytic tools to study narratives and their effects on human behavior in security contexts. 2. To analyze the neurobiological impact of narratives on hormones and neurotransmitters, reward processing and emotion cognition interactions, and finally, number 3, to develop models to influence in social and environmental contexts, developing sensors to determine their impact on individuals and groups and suggest doctrinal modifications. That's what DARPA did with their information that they obtained from the military memetics tutorial that they received between 2006 2009. But if it's not disturbing enough that DARPA are in on the act of memetical warfare and militarized memetics, we're going to go and look at a couple of other alphabets that are also arm deep in memes. Stay tuned, guys. Alright, guys, so we just saw how DARPA are involved in memetic warfare, and this PDF that's 16 pages long is titled "It's Time to Embrace Memetic Warfare," and it was actually written by an author for the behalf, or on behalf, or for the purpose of, as you can see there, NATO, another one of the alphabet agencies, and it just starts off by saying that it was originally published in the winter of 2015 as part of the Defense Strategic Communications peer-reviewed journal. And as I said, it is 16 pages long. We're not going to read all of the 16 pages. I did just want to put this in and just show you that there are some pretty big defense and peacekeeping organizations that seem very, very interested and intent on adapting and gaining expertise in memetic warfare. And the foreword says, "Ideas and influence travel fast in today's globalized information environment. The ability to influence narrative and perception has become arguably the most leveraged participatory and relevant form of power." This is what this 2015 paper is all about. The war over narrative, aggressively delivered through guerrilla online communications known as memetic warfare. A year and a half have passed since this paper was published, and at the time there is significant concern about ISIS's ability to recruit and spread its message online. Governments were struggling to counter Islamist guerrilla communications tactics, and the journey to writing, it began with a simple question: why aren't we weaponizing trolling and memetics to fight ISIS and other enemies? The author had seen the effectiveness of these crafts in political context, so why not use it to destroy ISIS or any other enemy for that matter? This paper was aimed to do two things. First, it is to set out, advance the concept of a memetic warfare in the same way cyber warfare expanded the military into hacking and security. This paper argues for a more expansive view of strategic communications on the social media battlefield. That's what is commonly known as your social media newsfeed. It proposes memetic warfare as a guerrilla form of information operations that is needed in our rapidly evolving social media driven information environment. The second aim of the paper was to explore the barriers and considerations to making memetic warfare a reality, to start a conversation against the organizational, bureaucratic, doctrinal, legal, and ethical considerations involvement in this. The intent was to push NATO member governments to take memetic warfare seriously as a craft and as a threat. In 2017, at time of writing, this paper feels particularly relevant because on March the 7th of that year, WikiLeaks released a mass leak of nearly 9,000 classified documents that reveal the CIA's extensive hacking and electronic intercept capabilities. Instantaneously, the entire world gained access to highly sensitive documents about sources and methods of the United States national security. The conversation among Americans shifted from the threats of Russian hacking to threats of US intelligence community, sowing mistrust and confusion. It was the memetic equivalent of a tactical nuke. The Vault release happened in the context of a larger discussion about influence campaigns, fake news, and government malfeasance. US lawmakers recently held hearings specifically on how to counter foreign propaganda and information warfare. People are sensing that the battle over narrative is getting dirtier and more intense. The lines between political dialogue, journalism, and information warfare are burning. Concepts like fake news are now in the public consciousness. Memetic warfare offers a conceptual framework to think about these issues. The author has his views changed since writing his paper, and his experience since writing it have stimulated a more advanced operational view on memetic warfare and a better sense of how to execute a campaign, the strategies, the tactics, the resources, and the capabilities and organizational structures to embrace these memetic warfare tactics. However, the biggest change of view the author is being honest about is a nagging sense of dread. Memetic warfare is only going to get more and more intense, and this has some positive aspects, a more efficient surfacing for facts, for instance, but the free societies must be concerned about the corrosive effect these battles, which are often invisible to the normal eye, may have on our sense of trust in each other and our institutions, which is exactly what is going on in today's contemporary times with the memetic warfare that is helping to perpetuate the current psychological operation that we are living under. And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. And it is through a series of memes that I believe that this is continuing to the memes are the fuel that are continuing to help this psyop burn, and the narrative is being controlled on both sides of the argument, and the narrative is being delivered through a series of memetics. But as with any potential weapon, memetical warfare cannot be afforded to play ignorant. Just because we are confronted with something too unconventional for traditional institutions to confront, we must prepare for the worst, and we must view it as an opportunity as well as a threat. Memetic warfare awareness shows that this type of combat is everywhere, and it is everywhere, and it is unseen to the naked eye, or the normal eye, as it was suggested in this article. Those who dominate the narrative, military, powerful or not, ultimately defeat their opponents. And that was written by Jeff Gairesa of Washington, D.C. in March 26, interestingly, in March 3, never mind. But anyway, it is a few more pages long, which we're not going to be looking into, but you can see a list of some of the things. Develop memetic warfare conceptually. allocate better resource, embrace the memetic mindset, make space for it legally, bureaucratically, and ethically, and keep learning, and more importantly, experimenting. So that, as I said, is part of the opening to a very, very long and very, very interesting article on memetic warfare that was written for NATO and some of its co-organizations. So one last alphabet agency to look at before we go and look at some modern day social media memes, which I'm sure one or two of you may have come across in the last few days and weeks on your social media feeds. Stay tuned. We find ourselves at newspunch.com, where the slogan says, mainstream fears to tread. So swiftly moving down below the header, CIA meme warfare. A document reveals plans to control your mind. What more do I need to say other than let's see what the CIA meme warfare document reveals about the plans to control your mind? And there are some agents, some military personnel by the looks of things in one of these meme deployment tanks that are part of the meme processing center that comes out of the DARPA's narrative network a project, I'm sure, in and around the sort of mid-2010s. There was a sort of few articles that I come across and read about how sort of military personnel that had sort of maybe injuries or wounded in action that could no longer sort of carry out active duties in sort of being in the sort of frontline battlefield conditions were being relocated to offices such as this for the purpose and intent of becoming social media trolls or meme agents that would deliver narratives and sort of propaganda designed for whatever they were being recruited to sell. So moving on, recently surfaced CIA document reveals that the military are going to create a meme warfare division tasked with controlling the minds of the American people. And this is from, again, back in 2017, around the time that article or PDF we just saw, Time to Embrace Medical Warfare, was being circulated and distributed amongst NATO and its partners. But according to the US defense documents, memes can be used to win war and influence the general population. It's something that I've been telling you for over a year now, that memes are mind control and they are thought implantation. But some of you think that they're just saying what you're thinking, and that's why you share and agree with them. But I suggest and offer to you the question, are they saying what you're thinking, or are they telling you what to think? I think it would be the latter. But in a paper published in 2005 by Michael B. Prosser, the US military are able to weaponize and diffuse memes in order to defeat an enemy ideology and win over the masses. And we are in a state of memetical warfare. The battlefields are social media themes, and many people do not realize that they have been inadvertently recruited as frontline infantry meme deployers. And I'm pretty sure you, as well as I, must have that one friend who is all about the memes, doesn't communicate any other way. It's all about the memes. I'm all about the memes, the memes, the memes. Sorry for that. But anyway, Prosser's paper proposes the creation of a meme warfare center, which we just looked at, was proposed in 2006 and was presented to DARPA, who then created the narrative network. It exists, folks. It's not conspiracy. It's out there. I'm providing you with the information, and all you need to know to go and do your own research, just as I did when I was putting this together. If this is any of interest to you, then please, I encourage you to go and do your own research on this subject, because it is fascinating as well as it is disturbing. But it will be tasked with advising the president on meme generation, transmission, and a detailed analysis on enemy-friendly and non-combatant populations. And according to Memetics, a growth industry in U.S. military operation, a proposed meme warfare center, an MWC, as a staff organization, has the primary mission to advise the commander on meme generation transmission, coupled with detailed analysis on the enemy friendly. And again, they just repeated what they said above. But the MWC aims for a full spectrum capability of meme generation analysis, quality control assurance, and organic transmission apparatus. The proposed MWC structure lays in stark contrast to the ADHOC nature of current IO and JPOTF formations. Don't ask me what any of those stand for. I'm sure someone, or hopefully someone in the chat, will be able to tell us what those are. But nonetheless, we're concentrating on memes, and military memes are military operations that produce memes, both intended and unintended. The unintended effects of memes are normally regarded as second or third order effects. On occasion, second and third order effects are the product of deliberate planning. However, many times they cannot be accurately forecasted. Memes, as defined above, are cultural bits of information replicated and transmitted from one mind to another mind. Memes influence, affect, generate, and alter ideas. A central theme behind this replication and transmission is individual and societal contact and interaction. Contact in the sense connotes both and direct and indirect means. Contact with an enemy, friendlies, or the community at large provides a vehicle or medium for memes to travel and replicate. And there is a little diagram of how the meme center would work. Creates the good memes, creates the bad memes, and out they go. It's far too small for me to read or see, even if I zoomed in. But that was short and sweet. And again, if you want to look more into the CIA's Meme Warfare Center, please do so. But there are 3 alphabet agencies of particular interest that should be somewhat of a concern to you, that they are all up spending billions and billions of dollars and have teams of experts and analysts working together on medical warfare for both the counter and the official narrative purposes. So that was a little bit of an introduction in scratching the surface on military memetics and memetic warfare. And as I said, please feel free to do further research of your own on this subject. And if you want to see me research these topics more fully and more in depth, let me know. Only happy to oblige. So let's go and look at social media memes and a little bit of the part that they are playing in modern day society and some of the ammunition that is being used in the modern day meme war that many of us are oblivious to is going on, but is the ways and the means for the continuation of the psychological operation we've been living under for the last 18 months. So what we are seeing now is what most people associate as to being memes, and what we are looking at is a selection of random memes I collected together for the purposes of this. And some of you will be all too familiar with some of the images you are seeing, if not the rhetoric or the memetics contained within the templates. The templates can be used over and over again. And as I said, this is what most people commonly associate with when they hear the word memes. But social media and internet memes come in sort of three folds: visual, audio, and written. And what we are kind of seeing now is a little bit of a mix of visual and verbal. You get to sort of read the written message, and you get to see a picture that accompanies it. And this is why we see so many familiar templates, because they're very, very familiar to us, and that triggers sort of a comfort sensation within the mind, and then it is a little bit more susceptible to receive whatever message is contained within that meme. And not all memes are necessarily nefarious. Some of them really are mostly fun or mostly once upon a time were fun, sort of had their origins and were sort of birthed in fandom. Game of Thrones was a particular show, and it had a lot of sort of social media fan groups that saturated those fan groups with memes related to the show, and somehow they sort of evolved and expanded into social media news feeds to sort of provide social media commentary. But having seen the evidence for military memetics and memetic warfare, my opinion is these are tools of mind control, thought implantation, influence, and have become an extension of conventional memes. And if anything, the sort of protocols that are associated with memes of a cultural nature are also as applicable to social media memes. So we are going to pay a little attention, as I said, to some other forms of memetics that we will see on social media platforms, and certainly something that you will be all too familiar with. If you do use social media and you do look on your news feed, you will see nothing but every other post as being a meme. So stay tuned as we do continue to investigate memetics and the social influence that social media memes have over society.
So in 2013, Richard Dawkins revisited his original term meme to clarify that an internet meme is different than the meme that he once described. An internet meme is a meme or a cultural idea that's been deliberately altered by human creativity. So via the internet and cyber culture, these things become digital artistic expressions. So let's take a look at what it takes and how people make these artistic masterpieces. Memes are essentially comics, but without a formal outlet like a newspaper. The first and most popular form of internet meme was image macros. And Grumpy Cat here is a great example. It's a caption superimposed on an image. Rather than putting your witty comment below a photo, you're putting it right on top. So though they've evolved, internet memes today generally follow this same format. But arguably, creating a successful meme today versus, say, 6 years ago requires more time, a thorough knowledge of current events, and even familiarity with complex design and editing software. So for instance, all of these things come together, and you really need to be paying attention to what's happening both on the internet and outside of the internet in order to understand these memes. For instance, traditional schooling requires that students study classic novels as they appear in other forms of entertainment and even conversation. It makes people cultured. Knowledge of popular internet memes functions in the same way, especially among younger generations. And if you're not keeping up, it's really easy to fall behind. And clearly, I've been there. And then they make memes about that too. So if you don't get it, you're not in the loop. But why do you want to be in the loop? Who cares, right? Humans have a desire to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And the validation you receive on the internet from a meme well done is not a commentary on the way you look or the way you dress. Rather, it's a more personal level of validation of your cleverness, intellect, and worldly knowledge. And as an added bonus, maybe you'll leave something immortal behind. Another human desire that's oddly contrary to fitting in is to stand out, to leave a legacy, to be remembered. So I had a meme go a little bit viral once. STEM professors, no curve, no study guide, no mercy. Liberal arts professors, that test was too hard. Here's a picture of a unicorn. And now this was an actual email from one of my professors. And the play here is on a stigma amongst university students that liberal arts students do not work as hard or do not have as rigorous of a curriculum as our business or engineering peers. And as these themes regularly occur in the UT Memes Facebook page, I decided to post this. And so people were commenting, tagging, sharing this. And while all of these things seem small, I was left feeling like I had accomplished something, even though in reality, I had accomplished nearly nothing. But that's how it goes. I mean, virality is pretty rare, unless you're Kylie Jenner, who is the runner-up world record holder for the highest number of likes on Instagram behind a picture of an egg. But that's how it goes. Compared to the number of people on this planet and the number of things posted per day, a very small number of things reach beyond your immediate followers. And unless you're Kylie Jenner, that following is at most a few hundred friends that might see your post. So in 2013, researchers at Indiana University conducted a study to see how internet memes go viral. Now, I hate to burst your bubble, but apparently what they found is that it's a result of complete random chance. Once an internet meme is shared beyond the first person that posts it, that exponentially increases its likelihood to be shared again by introducing it to a whole new crowd of followers, and therefore exponentially increasing its likelihood to go viral. On the other hand, if an internet meme does not get shared, it dies out quickly and everyone forgets it ever happened. In this way, internet memes function like a virus, spreading like a contagion and dying out without a host. Hence the term virality. So armed with this awareness, anyone on the internet has the potential to become famous. Anyone can create a meme and maybe go viral and be virtually free of social consequences, especially if the joke that they make is a little bit offensive. Now, on most platforms, there's no authorship attached, so why does it matter? Except on Facebook. Facebook has your name, your face, your friends, and usually your most sincere social brand. Not too long ago, recently accepted students to Harvard University formed a Facebook page in which they shared memes to build community before their arrival to campus. However, university officials caught wind of this group and rescinded 10 students' acceptances to the university upon the discovery of images mocking sexual assault, the Holocaust, and the deaths of children. Now, these examples mark extreme topics of taboo in American culture, and these are extreme examples of the social consequences of internet meme creation. But most of the time, no one faces any consequences. People feel freer to flirt with the boundaries of the taboo and create offensive memes for what psychology professor John Suler calls the online disinhibition effect. People behave differently online than they do in person, for what Professor Suler delineates in 6 key contributors. But I find 4 of these incredibly key to internet meme creation. The first of these, dissociative anonymity. The ability to hide your true identity online allows you to remove yourself from responsibilities of your actions. Additionally, there's invisibility, and that's a lack of physical contact with other users on the internet. Moreover, that lack of physical contact often leads to dissociative or dehumanizing behaviors of other online users. By not viewing people as actual people with real feelings, this often leads to the production of especially offensive internet memes via solipsistic interjection. And finally, the minimization of authority. The lack of an authoritative figure online feeds the production of especially offensive memes. And for now, there's no law against creating offensive memes. A law against creating any kind of meme would be encroaching on our freedom of speech. So all of these things come together, all of these behaviors forming the online disinhibition effect lead to controversial creations that call into question the boundary between free speech and socially disruptive behavior. But that's the point of jokes, right? To disrupt the audience's expectations. We often laugh because we're uncomfortable. Think of any successful comedian you've heard. Some of the bits that we react the most to are the ones that have us thinking in our head, did they just say that out loud? Or for instance, tickling. That's one of the most uncomfortable situations you can ever be in, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. But we laugh. Or babies. Let's take a look at babies. They have no concept of language yet, so what they're laughing at is often very natural or innate. So if you're making a baby laugh, then you're probably genuinely funny. Or you're making them uncomfortable. Think about what babies laugh at, right? Peekaboo. When you play peekaboo with a baby, they don't yet understand object permanence. They don't understand that when you cover your eyes, that you're still there. They think you've disappeared entirely. So when you suddenly reappear, they are shocked. And they usually laugh because they don't really know what else to do. And that's kind of how we react to offensive memes. So why do people make memes? Why does this all matter? To answer this question, I polled about 1,000 of my Facebook friends, and the results ultimately fell in these 4 categories. For validation, to make fun of your friends, to make a statement, political or otherwise, or start a conversation, or to laugh and distract from reality and daily life, often via some commonality. And while all of these goals are different, they seem to have one thing in common. They build relationships. And consequently, they build communities. They build communities in geographic areas like states, or universities, or cities. They build communities amongst people with similar interests, like music, or cats, or dogs, and so much more. And again, paying attention to these things that happen both within and outside of cyberculture is so key to understanding them. For instance, the kind of memes that you'll see on the UT memes page are often City of Austin happenings, university news, or the decades-long rivalry with Texas A&M. So all of these things come together to form cyberculture. All of these communities, all of these individuals connecting to form cyberculture, one culture in which we all participate. It's rather funny to me how something so inherently silly can have such a major effect on the way we communicate with one another. And not only is it connecting individuals and communities, it's connecting generations as well. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard generations older than myself or even older than my parents say that they're just writing off internet memes. They don't need to spend time with them and they don't need to understand them. They're silly internet jokes. But many people felt this way about other innovations in the past. The internet, Facebook, smartphones, and even paper. When paper as we know it today was gaining popularity, older generations wrote it off and said that tablet writing was much more permanent and respected, and that paper was an innovation that wouldn't last. Memes are no paper, for now. But meme culture will only continue to grow, and there's no stopping it, and it will continue to affect the way we communicate with one another in the future. Maybe someday, internet meme creation will be a skill essential to successful relationships, or even the job market. Maybe it already is. But for now, keep scrolling, keep sharing, and as they say on Twitter, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Next, we're going to look at some memetic behavior and also listen to some memetic rhetoric that I've observed being circulated on social media in the last few weeks. And pretty much all of these videos seem to be coming from TikTok influencers. But something I found quite interesting, maybe disturbing, was the similarities in the sort of head movements and facial gestures that all of these influencers seem to possess. And is that by accident? Is that by design? Or is this an example of memetics? Humans see, human do. They see one influencer blinking and bobbling their head around, and they do it. But there does seem to be something in some reason in purpose to all of this, in my opinion, and don't know if or not you share that opinion, but we are going to slow it back down to regular speed and hear what they have to say. You can provide your input as we watch together.
There's no time limit on them, so this is designed to be the new normal. They promote segregation and division. They're discriminatory. They're absolutely pointless because they have no bearing on immunity or transmission. It creates a show your papers society. It's a coercion to get you to take a medical treatment, and it removes your freedom of choice. So aside from all that, this is just the start. As with the situation in Israel, these vaccine passports have an actual sell-by date, again, and time limit. So you think you're fully vaccinated because you've got your double jab and you're so happy because you're going to have access to everything. That only lasts for a certain amount of time because they're bringing the third booster out. So that vaccine passport only lasts.
Now, current studies coming out of Israel show that the Pfizer vaccine wanes within 3 to 5 months. So we're all in this together, communism. And also, you'll need the latest booster or you can't take transit to work. So you're not just asking me to take a vaccine. You're asking me to receive vaccines as a lifestyle choice. You're asking me to accept an unending streak of vaccines, not only for the rest of my life, but as a condition of my freedom. Do you understand how dumb you are if you think anyone's opposition to this maniacal proposition is in any way inappropriate? No, I don't want infinite boosters forever as a condition of my own freedom. What the hell? Why is anyone advocating for this?
See, I'll believe it when I see it, because this seems to me like another psychological tactic to lull us into a false sense of security. Because at the end of the day, last year, Eat Out to Help Out had only just finished. We're not even to the cold flu season yet. So what's going to happen then when the cases and the deaths goes up? How are we going to get out of lockdown then? Oh, do the vaccine passports have to come back then? Looks like it to me. So you know what? I ain't cheering yet and I ain't celebrating. It's not happening. I've been an advocate for this. I've been campaigning. When it happens, if we get through the winter and we return to normal, I'll be celebrating
then. You're not, you're racist, is what I'm saying. Hi, this is a little message to the unvaccinated. You are killing everyone. It's your fault. You're being selfish, so get the vaccine. Because I'm vaccinated. I am vaccinated, okay? And so I'm protected because the vaccine is safe and effective. So if you're around me and you're unvaccinated, then you're putting me at well, you're not. Okay, so you're selfish because if I'm protected and you're around me, then I'm
distancing. And
then
if the
I'm
vaccine
fine,
doesn't
but
provide any immunity,
sorry.
why get the vaccine? And the vaccine passport scheme is completely and utterly useless. Wakey, how can you get herd immunity from a vaccine that doesn't provide any immunity? Right now, that vaccine passport looks like a show of obedience to your authoritarian government. Literature states the vaccine doesn't stop you spreading or catching the virus. It doesn't provide immunity, but it does lessen symptoms. So riddle me this. If asymptomatic spread is real and the vaccine only lessens the symptoms, that would make the double jabbed the most likely in society to become asymptomatic, thus making the vaccinated the most dangerous asymptomatic super spreaders. Honestly, it's real. Go through it again. So that would mean you either believe in asymptomatic spread or you believe the vaccine works, because you can't believe in both because the concepts are mutually exclusive.
Lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized. If all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest. If you have to be persuaded, reminded, pressured, lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized, if all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest.
And in 2021, what are the same men doing now from a government who are trying to do the same and inject their children with an experimental medication that could kill them? Oh, govern me harder, Daddy. Oh, lock me down again and jab me more and use the children to protect me too. So in World War II, did they send their kids over the trenches as a shield to protect them first? How many 12 to 15-year-olds have to die of blood clots and myocarditis and long-term effects so selfless adults can sit at home and feel safe and protected? Before you say all this is sexist because I'm using men here. I wish you were all real. I wish you really did help, but you don't. And you're on the side of wrong. I hope this recall goes through because California does not need you. The nation does not need you. The world does not need you. We do not need you. Governor Gavin Newsom, you're facing a recall because you're a fraud, just like your wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom. I have the receipts. I wish I didn't. I wish you were all real. I wish you really did help, but you don't. And you're on the side of wrong.
Compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best interest. If you have to be persuaded, reminded, pressured, lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid,
or you already have donated, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please share. This is a people-funded campaign, a grassroots-funded campaign that's not taking any corporate money, so every single dollar helps and can have a huge impact. And we can show people that it is possible to have a people-funded campaign and get elected to Congress. So please share this, and yeah, thank you. Or you already have donated, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please share. This is a people-funded campaign, a grassroots-funded campaign that's not taking any corporate money, so every single dollar helps and can have a huge impact. And we can show people that it is possible to have a people-funded campaign and get elected to Congress. So please share this, and yeah, thank you.
Story about the COVID shot. So I'm gonna probably get kicked off TikTok for this, but it's fun. It's worth it, just so you know. So my son is gonna be 17. He had COVID, I had COVID, my parents had COVID. We all lived this last year. Antibodies are going through the roof. They're raising, they're not decreasing. But my son, because douchebag de Blasio decided it's mandated you have the vaccine, he couldn't do anything. So he said, Mom, I want to get the shot. So I went when Pfizer was FDA approved and I got the shot. Now I'm living with congestive heart failure. But guess what? A week later, I have AFib. Now I'm living with congestive heart failure and AFib. And when I went for the second shot to tell them what happened, they told me it was the 40th person that walked into that pharmacy that wound up with AFib from the shot. So before you get the jab, make sure you talk to your doctor.
From getting the vaccines, all of Congress, plus all the congressional staff, House and the Senate, that's a lot of people. 6,000 White House employees, all exempted. 2,500 Pfizer employees exempted. 1,500 Moderna employees, and 120,000 Johnson & Johnson employees, all exempted. 15,000 CDC, 14,000 FDA employees, exempted. 8 million Chinese students in this country. 8 million. How many of them are PLA, CCP? 85, 90%. That's how many. I can tell you that. Exempted. Here's another one. 2 million illegal invaders. Exempted. They don't have to get the shot. Now what is going on here? Now let me throw another one in. This is going to be the cherry on top. At least 500,000 homeless tent and street people are exempted. So
stigmatized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized. If all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in
obedience
your
to your
best
authoritarian
interest.
government.
Let you have the vaccine.
The vaccine
If you have to be persuaded,
In
reminded.
the hardest season of your life, and secretly they were hoping you weren't gonna make it, and you were praying the wrong prayer. You wanted God to kill your enemies. God said, no, I can't kill your enemies. I'm keeping up people who watched you while you were in the hardest season of your life, and secretly they were hoping you weren't gonna make it, and you were praying the wrong prayer. You wanted God to kill your enemies. God said, no, I can't kill your enemies. I'm keeping them.
If you have to be persuaded, reminded, pressured, lied to, incentivized, coerced, bullied, socially shamed, guilt-tripped, threatened, paid, punished, and criminalized. If all of this is considered necessary to gain your compliance, you can be absolutely certain that what is being promoted is not in your best
So there we just saw some TikTok influencers delivering some memetic rhetoric as well as some memetic behavioral patterns. And now what we are going to look at is some examples of some written memes and meme mutations that I've witnessed circulating on social media news feeds in the last few weeks and maybe months. And some of you yourself may be familiar with some of these memetics that we are about to see, and some of you may have inadvertently become part of the meme spreading propaganda machine and shared some of these yourself. But memes do play a huge part of social media society, and they do seem to have had an awful lot of money been spent by government and alphabet agencies into researching and developing military memetics, as well as the parameters and rules for engagement on memetic warfare. And you have to ask yourself, with them preparing for memetic warfare years in advance of social media being launched and being a part of everyday society that does seem to govern our behavioral patterns quite extensively, was the purpose of social media little more to provide the battlefields for memetic warfare, and are the powers to be providing all the augmented ammunition for the inadvertent players in the real life role-playing COVID Con Go multiplayer online real life role playing. As I said, people have chosen their side, and people have been inputted and implanted with all the augmented memetic rhetoric and ammunition that they need to carry out their job as frontline meme infantry. But this is a little reminder of some memetics from around this last year that really disturbed me, to just see how an example of how exactly memes can influence the minds of the masses, and how masses can be triggered with little more than a suggestion on social media to carry out a command on demand. Right, folks, so let's start out at the DARPA Defense Advanced Research Project Agency's website and get the information from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and see what they have to say the narrative network is all about. And it starts out by saying, why do people accept and act on certain kinds of information while dismissing others? Why are some narrative themes successful at building support for terrorism? And what role can narratives play in causing and helping to treat post-traumatic stress disorder? These questions deal with the role narratives play in human psychology and sociology, and their answers have a strategic implications for defense missions. DARPA launched the Narrative Networks program to understand how narratives influence human cognition and behavior and apply those findings in international security contexts. The program aims to address the factors that contribute to radicalization, violent social mobilization, insurgency, and terrorism among foreign populations. It also can be applicable to domestic populations. And the efforts are to support conflict prevention and resolution, effective communication, and innovative PTSD treatments. But narratives may consolidate memory, shape, and emotions, and they may cue heuristics and biases in judgment, and they also can influence group distinctions. To determine their influence on cognitive functions requires a working theory of narratives and an understanding what role they play in security contexts, and an examination of how to systematically analyze narratives and their psychological and neurobiological impact. Now, the Narrative Networks has 3 parallel tracks of research and development, the first of which is to develop quantitative analytic tools to study narratives and their effects on human behavior in, once again, security contexts. To analyze the neurobiological impact of narratives on hormones and neurotransmitters, reward processing, and emotion cognition interaction, and developing models and simulations of narrative influence in social and environmental contexts. Develop sensors to determine their impact on individuals and groups, and then suggest doctrinal modifications. So guys, to basically put that in layman's terms, in simplistic terms, algorithms are exactly what they are talking here, and algorithms then that are operated with artificial intelligence that in real time can analyze the impact of narratives to an individual, and then feed back that data that they have received in real time, once again, to something like the Narrative Network, where they can see exactly what impact they have on people. And the narrative influence it is something we've always sort of been very aware of. We always sort of talk about in terms of the official narrative when we sort of talk about events like a certain September Tuesday morning. And in recent times, narratives are very, very, very important to control. And there's the sort of official narrative and the controlled narrative, which we will look at in a little while, how that kind of works and operates and comes out of the same factory. But that is, as I said, the DARPA website. We got a little bit of information there, although not much information from the horse's mouth. But this is to sort of show and highlight to you that the Narrative Network is a real thing. It isn't one of those tinfoil hat conspiracy theories or one of those things that is being delivered to you via sort of TikTok influencers and hoping that that narrative will resonate with certain mindsets and then be repeated over and over again until we're for certain groups and demographics demographs, that will be accepted as the truth. But that's that for DARPA's website. We are going to go and have another look at something that gives us a little bit more information on just sort of how this operates and how this works and the sort of disturbing nature of it all. So stay tuned. We're coming back with another article pretty much right now. Okay, here at Physics.org, the article starts out by reading DARPA looking to master propaganda via the narrative networks, and this actually circulated in December of 2011, guys, over 11 years ago. So just look how much mastering of delivering propaganda DARPA must have learned over the last 11 years. But sometimes you just don't know whether to laugh or cry or be alarmed when hearing about what the boys in secretive backrooms are doing in the name of anti-terrorism or homeland security, or whatever they wish to call it. This time, it seems the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, the semi-secret agency, charged with coming up with a new and cool ways to protect the citizens of the United States from foreign bad guys, wants to hire somebody to figure out how vulnerable some people are to narrative, oral stories, speeches, propaganda, books, etc. that cause people to think, and then supplant such messages with better messages to head off the path that for such people might lead them to becoming a terrorist, controlling the narrative, seeing what people have got to say about things and then redirecting it to a more desirable destination, one could argue. But called the Narrative Network Project, DARPA has released a solicitation for research proposals by those that have both the know-how and the technology to implement such a program, which is divided into two parts, although we just seen from the DARPA website there are actually three parts. But the first part would evolve, just to repeat that, analyzing what happens to people when they hear or see a message. It is thought that certain messages or images actually cause a change in the brain to accommodate them as new ideas. And memes, of course, are images that contain messages that often change the brain to accommodate the new ideas. But the second part of the study is quite naturally would involve developing a means for taking advantage of what is learned in the first part, or in other words, to come up with a way to find out who is vulnerable to messaging or certain messaging, and then to blast them with a message that would overwrite any undesirable brain changes that occurred as the result of that person being subjected to bad messages. So they would behave themselves. How to change behavioral patterns and how to defeat your enemy through memetic warfare is to do just that, change the way they think and how they behave to a more desirable behavioral and thought pattern. But at first blush, such a program would appear to be as scary as all get. And after all, if our government gets its hands on technology that could reprogram people who have come to feel things the government doesn't like, it seems like a really a good way to control them, including its own population. On a second thought, though, as reality starts to kick in, it appears that while some research in this area might bear some fruit, it's highly doubtful that any such program would meet with with much success. After all, governments and other entities have been trying how to figure ways to brainwash people for thousands of years with very little to show for their efforts. I could sort of argue that they have probably got lots to show for their efforts. But on the other hand, the folks at DARPA seem to think that new advances in technology might have changed the game a little bit. Now, at the time this was written, 2011, smart technology, iPhones and Android devices were sort of relatively new and not exactly in the hands of every individual, as is the case now. They were sort of still quite sort of expensive and quite exclusive, and only sort of 1 in 10 people may have had a smart device, where some of us still had the old-fashioned flip type phones. But back to the article. New types of brain scans can, for example, show a brain being changed due to a received message. And highly sophisticated electronic sensing devices are able to pick up even the slightest of nuances in facial expression. Remember, we have facial recognition now bedded within our camera that is pretty much recording all the time. If or not you have disabled it, regardless, it is still there recording each and every time. And many people have the facial recognition as their security lock on their phone. They sort of flash their face and the phone unlocks. So again, bear in mind this is 11 years old, and how many things that sort of now are sort of common knowledge and been accepted within the world of technology, and sort of all of this sort of technology does seem to be residing within our smart devices. But if the two technologies, the article continues to say, could be brought together, the thinking goes perhaps people could be scanned without their knowledge and found to be either vulnerable to messaging or already changed in some way by messaging from a suspect source. In such case, they could be targeted for specialized messaging that has been shown through research to be effective in overriding what has occurred in their unknowing noggins. Each phase is supposed to go for 18 months, though there doesn't appear to be any component of the project that calls for publicly publishing results found or describing product deliveries after completion. And that pretty much finishes up that article from Physics.org. But guys, listen to what they are saying, and take into consideration how in today's society it's extremely hard to navigate any news feed without seeing memes of one variety or another. Now, not all memes are nefarious, not all memes are propaganda, but the vast majority of them are, and what they are being used to do, even if they do seem very harmless and obscure, they are in fact implanting the messages slowly and the programming, piece by piece, until you're more subjected to the messaging that they want you to receive and what they want you to be programmed with and what they want you to have as your belief system. And we have artificially intelligent algorithms, we have our own personalized artificial intelligent handler that resides within our smart devices, and we sort of give it access to all of our inner secrets and inner knowledge through sort of creating Google accounts and agreeing to sort of terms and conditions on various apps that gives the artificial intelligent handler all the information it could possibly want to know us better than ourselves, and then relay this information to somebody like DARPA at the Narrative Network, who can then tailor-make specified memes that they can then target and deliver to individuals or groups of individuals. So that was Physics.org. It was a pretty short and sweet, but very much to the point article explaining exactly what the DARPA Narrative Network can do and what his intended purpose was. And again, this was way back in 2011 when smart technology and Apple and iPhone were, or Apple and Android rather, were still very sort of brand new, desirable concepts to a lot of folks. But now everybody has a cell phone and a smart device, if not multiple smart devices, on their person or within their whole household that is ever recording, ever watching, ever listening to what we have to say and can relay this information that can then target and tailor make our own personalized programming. And the way that they are delivering that programming in recent times is through memes, where we are going to go and look next. Right, here at Gang Stalking, Mind Control and Cults.com, we're looking at a very, very, very short, not really very informative article about a project for mind control coming out of DARPA, and this mind control project was working towards narrative disruptors and inductors, and we just heard all about the narrative network in a few years after its conception. This was an advancement, I'm guessing, in that research to work towards controlling the minds of the masses, but on the 28th of February 2015, Mind Control, the fringe towards narrative disruptors and inductors, was mapping the narrative comprehension network and its persuasive effects. And in July of 2013, internet rumors began circulating about a DARPA research project that aimed at controlling the human mind. An article published by Activist Post, it was stated by a whistleblower that revealed that a military mind control project at a major university was underway. And what if the government could change people's moral beliefs or stop political dissent through remote control of people's brains? Now, remote controls humans are something we have looked at previously in the past here at Reality Decoded, and it all kind of works all hand in glove and all together in the mass manipulating of the mindset. And you know, DARPA seems to be behind a lot of this memetical warfare, and they are not the only player in memetic wars. If they were the only enemy using memetic warfare against us, we might stand a chance. But sadly, the United States government, the United States military, NATO, the United Nations, the United Kingdom government, the list is pretty much endless of how many people are investing millions and millions of dollars, of pounds or euros into memetic research, and in particular how to utilize military memetics in civilian terms, should I say. But it sounds like science fiction, right? Well, a leaked document reveals that the US government, through DARPA, who is a government contractor of course, and not an actual wing of the government, which gives them sort of plausible deniability as to what DARPA may or may not going on. But it is very close to accomplishing in this. And again, this was back in 2013, a couple of years after the narrative network's conception. But Activist Post was recently contacted by a whistleblower. No one necessarily is blowing whistles that ain't meant to be heard, so take of it what you will, and maybe add a pinch or handful of salt to your discretion as to what you make of this article. But he was working on a secret ongoing mind control project at DARPA, and the aim of the program is to remotely disrupt political dissent and extremism by employing transcranial magnetic simulation, the sort of thing that can be simulated from your cell phone, I'm pretty sure, in tandem with a sophisticated propaganda based on this technology. TMS stimulates the temporal lobe of the brain with good old electromagnetic fields. Another topic and subject we have spoken greatly about. I think most recently would have been in an upload titled Havana Syndrome. Go and check that out. But frequency, weaponry and technology and mind control is something we have also spoken a great deal about at Reality Decoded, as well as memetics, which we are looking at more in depth this evening. But the program conducted by the Center for Strategic Communication is based at an Arizona State University, and the DARPA funding for this project can be confirmed on the ASU website, and there's a link to click on so you can get that confirmation. And the head of the project, Steve Corman, has worked extensively in the area of strategic communication misinformation as it applies to terrorism and extremism, or what could be called the war of ideas. I'll read more on that, but we won't be doing that today. But the author of this article sent out for a Freedom of Information Act request to the OSD, US and DARPA regarding this project, and below he received some documents which unfortunately I tried to click on, but you can't open them, but there you can see he did receive some documents. But that's pretty much all it is saying here on gang stalking, mind control and cults about the DARPA mind control project, and there are a few more articles out there on this if you choose to look into it further yourself. I'm trying to sort of keep this a little bit brief and maybe try to streamline the length and duration of these presentations, and maybe spend a little bit more time afterwards live in the studio talking about what we've just seen. So that is that for gang stalking, mind control and cults.com, a very interesting website. Again, I would recommend, if you're interested in stuff, checking it out. But let's go and check out some more articles on meme control, narrative networks, and how exactly they sort of are working to change the minds of the masses. So stay tuned, guys. We're coming back right now with another new article. We find ourselves here at LinkedIn.com to read an article from 2018 that reads Memes That Kill: The Future of Information Warfare. Now, this is a slightly longer article than the others that you'll see in this presentation, but this one actually contains the most information, does give us a little bit of a deeper look into the exact sort of goings on in how memetic warfare, military memetics truly works. And by the end of it, you may kind of start to see the darker nature of memes. But the article starts out by saying memes and social networks have become weaponized. And while many governments seemed ill-equipped to understand the new reality of information war, I would contradict and suggest that many governments probably seemed very well equipped and understand only too well the concept of the new reality of information warfare. But how will we fight state-sponsored information and propaganda in the future? Well, we won't know how to fight it unless we understand what it is and how the disinformation and propaganda is spread, which is why I do these presentations for you on military memetics. But this article comes from CB Insights, and for the full version, you can check us out here. Unfortunately, to get the full version, you do have to register and subscribe to their news list. But back in 2011, a professor with a background in robotics presented an idea that seemed radical at the time. But after conducting research backed by DARPA, and the same defense agency that helped spawn the internet, good old Dr. Robert Finkelstein proposed the creation of a brand new arm of the United States military, a meme control center. In internet speak, the word meme often refers to a amusing picture that goes viral on social media that contains a message in text with it. But more broadly, however, a meme is any idea that spreads, whether the idea is true or false. In this broader definition of meme that Finkelstein had in mind when he proposed the Meme Control Center and his idea of memetic warfare. And here's a diagram from the PDF on military memetics, memetic warfare, that sort of points out and highlights how it works. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a box that reads Memetics for Intelligence and National Defense, MIND, Mind, R&D Center. then those memes get sent over to a meme control center, who then delivers them down the chain of command to a meme control officer, who may well be an artificial intelligence supercomputer with billions of algorithms at its disposal to create the exact desired content that will gain the desired reaction. And what the meme control officer then does is send the memes out to two separate processing centers. One, the meme processing center for the pro side of the argument or propaganda, and the counter meme processing center, which is the more dangerous of the two, for the counter propaganda of whatever agenda or narrative is requiring the use of memes to deliver the desired message. And both of these processing centers, pro and against, then distribute their memes to the world, where they get shared, replicated, and redistributed. And it says there that that was taken from the PDF of Military Memetics. But basically, Finkelstein's meme control center would pump the internet full of memes. And you can't deny, guys, that each and every day that you use your social media platforms, whatever they may be, you are going to come across a meme or two. They are literally saturating the internet. And I would go as far as to say that certainly social media platforms are the battlefields for memetic warfare, and they are the main delivery system for the messages contained within memetics. But Finkelstein happened to see a future in where guns and bombs are replaced with rumor and digital fakery, as well as social engineering. And again, the social engineering is very, very evident in my eyes as an observer in contemporary times. But here's another little graphic from that PDF on Military Memetics that shows you the tipping point, and it says here that the rumor is the most contagious of all social messages, and social media is ripe for the spread of rumors. And once upon a time, tabloid newspapers and maybe magazines, morning shows on TV were sort of fueled and generated purely by gossip and hearsay. But they contain sometimes a little kernel of truth within the rumor or within the urban legend that is being distorted in three directions. The first one would be level entry. And this is sort of for the very, very basic minded, I guess, that don't really want to do sort of more than just press share or retweet. And this will leave out details essential to understand the true meaning of the incident or the message, but provide a very, very, very tiny kernel of sort of factual truth to it. The second way that they do these things is to sharpen the story, i.e. make remaining details more specific, so sort of highlight the part of the message in that they really, really want to seek in to sort of the next level of meme troops that are sort of being created via social media, depending on how much of this propaganda in memetics that they truly absorb. And the final sort of third wave of this is to simulate the story, i.e. to change the story so that it makes sense to those spreading the rumor. So pretty much you sort of tailor make and design the tailor as the story as you evolve it. So you sort of provide the initial memes, and depending on what is responded to the most or how people are reacting to certain things, then you can continue to sort of tailor make the story in that desired direction. Again, saying that it was taken from the tutorial on military memetics back in 2011. Fast forwarding 7 years to the time this article was written, Finkelstein's ideas do not seem radical at all. In fact, they seem very far-sighted. The 2016 US presidential election was shaped by a volatile mix of fake news, foreign meddling, and doctored images, as well as massive email leaks and even a cartoon meme in the shape and form of good old Pepe the Frog. And not to mention a conservative news site called Infowars. But it no longer seems silly to say that the future of warfare isn't on the battlefields, but it is on our screens and in our minds, and our social media feeds, as I've already said, have become the battlefields for these information memetic warfare campaigns. But military and intelligence agencies around the world are already waging secret information wars in cyberspace, and their memes are already profoundly influencing public perceptions of truth, power, and legitimacy, and even more so in contemporary times of 2022, where it seems memes are in fact the main source of the majority of social media users' information, and the majority of social media users influenced by these memetics have become what I like to call memetically educated, that nearly all of their education comes from memes and not necessarily their own individual research. And thought implantation, monkey see, monkey do, is a sort of simplistic sort of version or way of saying what memetics and memes truly are. But this threat is only intensified as artificial intelligence tools becomes more and more widely available. And bear in mind, guys, that the device that you're probably watching this stream on, as well as the device I am recording this presentation on, contains our own very personal artificial intelligence handler that kind of knows us better than we knows ourselves, knows every sort of little inner secret and idiosyncrasy that makes us us, and with that information contained within the metadata that it builds up from each and every individual that it is data harvesting, it then can create and tailor make information, misinformation, or propaganda that it knows damn well you are going to react to and is going to titillate your fancy. But consider this, folks, a political bot army or fake user sock puppets. And fake user sock puppets would be sort of real people who are pretending to be something else. They might just sort of create an account that shares memes. They might sort of create an account or a platform or a channel of their own where they deliver memetic messages in the form of a video or a live stream. I can assure you guys that is not what I am doing. I'm not a sock puppet. I'm not a fake user. I'm as independent and as real as I like to think that they come. But these bot armies and these fake user sock puppets are targeting social media feeds to computationally, I hope I'm reading that correct, spread propaganda. And again, sort of something that's very popular, certainly on Facebook, are little sort of social groups of popular or shared interests. I myself run hundreds, but quite a large amount of groups on Facebook with quite a large amount of members in that groups. But a group on Facebook, for example, can be very, very easy to sort of target in demographic. If it is about prepping, for example, you can send some AI bots or fake users into this group to pretend to be preppers and maybe sort of eventually start spreading disinformation. But back to the article. Online, the truth between, or the line between truth and falsehood is looking extremely fragile and as thin as a wafer-thin rolling paper, and as artificial intelligence researchers develop technologies that can make undetectable fake audio and video in pretty much real time, so to speak. But within a year, so judging by this article written in 2018, that by 2019 it will be easy, extremely easy, to create high quality digital deceptions whose authenticity cannot easily be verified. Below, we detail the technologies, the tactics, and the implications of the next generation of war. And this warfare, guys, is being carried out in real time, in real life, on our social media screens, and many millions, if not billions, of social media users worldwide are being subject to the frontline battlefield and the memetics and the propaganda that is being delivered on the pro or the against side of the argument. There is a high resolution version that is available on the subscription website, which we're not going to look at, but there you can see what the image that made up the thumbnail of a whole bunch of people staring at their phones, but the same sort of red light is symbolizing the sort of same messaging going into each and every single one of them from pretty much the same source, their cell phone, which is where most people get their information from. Apologies, guys, this is a little bit blurry. As I said, this isn't the high resolution version I hoped that I could have used for this presentation purpose, so forgive me if I don't have the ability to read all of the words on the screen with the utmost of ease, because my eyesight isn't exactly great to start with, in sort of having to read blurry, squiggly writing through squinted eyes isn't the most of easiest thing. But the first wave of military memetics is a period of reconnaissance, which is what I kind of sort of believe the last couple of years has been, in particular the sort of earlier days of the lockdown, when everyone was sort of put into self-isolation, self-quarantine, was separated from society, from loved ones, from jobs, families and friends, such forth, in sort of kept company only by their artificial intelligent phone. They probably were spending most of their time on social media platforms. What was going on during this time was the artificial bots and the sort of sock puppets were collecting all the information and metadata on individuals and groups of individuals, and using that for research purposes and for targeting material, is what it sort of says then. So an adversary scopes and steals, targets metadata, so they pretty much steal all of your sort of recent and regular posting habits, and then sort of from that conduct a sort of psychotronic or psychoanalysis of individuals or groups of individuals, and then they can sort of tailor make by design the next wave of propaganda, which is weaponization. As I said, I can't really read the words before we get down to the weaponization, but once the adversary has all this metadata, it then uses the metadata to create a psychographic profile or psychographic profiles that will be shared by many of these sock puppet fake users or programmed into the artificial intelligent bot armies that are then going to go out and deliver that message in the memetics. And weaponization is when artificial intelligent embedded editing software is used to generate malicious fake video and audio content, as well as fake and malicious memes that sort of like still videos. You get a picture and you get some words to read that obviously aren't read for you, but they become weaponized, and they either promote the pro side of the narrative or agenda, or they promote the counter side of the narrative and agenda. Then is the phase of attack, and the armies, be them artificial intelligent bots or sock puppets, will then strategically pump deceptive content into the information system. So example would be these bots in sock puppets would have 10 or so memes or variation of the same meme that they would then go out of their way to start posting on social media platforms or within groups on Facebook or delivering them via, shills that are reading from the same script. But once they saturate the information platform or whatever social media site that you use of preference with the messaging, there's sort of no escaping whether or not you're for or against it, or have no thought whatsoever. You are going to encounter this propaganda on your news feeds, whether you want to or not. And there you can kind of see a drawing of an individual that's all very confused, looking at his phone screen, and sort of on that phone screen you can sort of see an individual that is delivering the message that is desired. But machine learning enabled bots feed the content to people that they are most likely to share faked media. So once you sort of got all the information, you've created your fake personas that are gonna sort of share similar mindsets or similar attributes to the individuals that you want to manipulate. You then give them all the information that you need them to share, whether it be fake or not, and they will go out and do that for unwillingly and unknowingly, knowing that they have sort of become an extension in the military memetics, and they are becoming a propaganda delivery system of their own. The infection is when it has become saturated on the social media feed, and more people are seeing it and absorbing it as truth or as fakery, depending on how they see the narrative in their own personal eyes, or within the eyes of the sort of hive mind that they are creating. I mean, it's a little bit kind of like an example in Star Wars, the prequel movies, when you had a pre-programmed clone army that was fighting a droid army that was artificial intelligent and controlled from a centralized computer. All of them had exactly the same ordering and programming within them, and they all behaved exactly the same to one another, and both of them of course were controlled by Palpatine, who was pulling the strings of both sides of that conflict, which is very much the case now. The same hands pull the strings to all sides of global wars, and in this particular case information wars. But the social news feeds, as I was saying, enable the widespread sharing and viewing of deceptive content. And again, it doesn't matter if you share it, or agree with it, you are going to see it at some point or another. And the messaging contained within certainly sort of the picture memes that are the more commonly used as a distribution system, that messaging contained will be implanted in your mind the more times you go up and down and scroll through your social media. But stage 5 would be the destruction, and once the disinformation has run rampant online, eroding society's trust in institution and global leaders, and thus leading to chaos, confusion, and to even rebellion, which is why I think they're sort of counting on the end game of this particular memetic warfare campaign that we are contemporarily living in, is that many people have been subjected to the messaging in the pro or against memetics will eventually become sort of radicalized and rebellious, and may even take to all the sort of streets to fight against each other, very similar to the battle droids of the Trade Federation and the clone army of the Old Republic, while the perpetrators will sort of just sit back and watch the events going on and eventually reap the benefits. And again, once the sort of clone wars ended within the Star Wars prequels, the one galactic order of the Imperial Empire took the place of the role of the Old Republic once played in the galaxy, and was very much a draconian, tyrannical place to live, if you are familiar with the Star Wars movies, and we will not include the Disney monstrosities within that categorization. But there's a little picture of the rebellious meme warriors that I guess we could call them Meme-Chorian candidates through a series of programmatics through the three stages of memes have become so sort of consumed and controlled and under the influence of the memetics that they in turn become radicalized in civil unrest could possibly lead to martial law, which will probably not be relinquished once the incident has run its course. But if you were sort of building a one world order and you were working on a depopulation agenda, what sort of people would you want in your one world order? Would you want problematic, non-compliant, questioning everything government has to say types, or would you want compliant, would do anything we're told types to live there? I know who I would be choosing. I certainly won't want anybody that would question my authority in my own personal one world order. And maybe this is a selection process that the sort of more non-compliant, non-vax anti-maskers will essentially find themselves being rounded up because they've openly shared this content on their social media feed, and once it's on social media feed it sort of can't be unseen, and this can and could well be used as evidence against them. And certainly in contemporary times, when the United States government has categorized conspiracy theories and talking about anti-government agendas, and in particular speaking about the anti-COVIDian era, as acts of terrorism and terrorist thoughts. And once terrorism law comes into play, it's a very, very different kettle of fish than how regular law does. You can and will or could be detained indefinitely without charge, without a hearing, for the safety and security of the nation. It's always for safety and security that draconian measures are introduced and rolled out. But information attacks can be summed up in one century-old word: provocation. I'm not even going to attempt to read the Russian version there of the word. But think of artificial bots in these sort of fake sock puppet accounts as agent provocateurs that are going to sort of add fuel to fire and stir up the bee's nest until eventually people are going to get burnt or stunned. And it is an act that is said to have been practiced by spies in Russia in the Tsarist eras, and provocation describes staging of cloak and dagger deceptions to discredit, to dismay, and to confuse an opponent. And there's a lot of discrediting, dismay, and confusion in contemporary times concerning the COVIDian era and all that else that has been going on under the umbrella of the pandemic. But the drums, banners, and gongs of Sun-Sea's warfare, added by information technology, may now have evolved to the point where control can literally be imposed with little physical violence, pretty much imposed with a flick of a switch, I guess, or the click of a mouse, or the tapping of a touch-sensitive screen. And that was a quote from U.S. Colonel Richard Savansky, and that was a theory of information war preparing for 2020 that was written in 1995, folks, nearly 30 years ago. If you want to let that sink in, how long they have been preparing for memetic warfare. But in addition to international interference, politicians have also been known to stage domestic digital influence campaigns. Good old President Trump's campaign has come under increasing scrutiny for reportedly contracting UK-based firm Cambridge Analytica to mine Facebook data and to influence voter behavior in the run-up to the 2016 election. However, we focus on cases of foreign adversary attacking another country as opposed to the domestic influence campaigns. It can work for either or and both. But on a state-sponsored acts of information warfare is what they are kind of basing their research on. And a table of contents below gives you some links to some further information on this subject and sort of how these things work, which we're not going to click on now because this will take forever and a day to get through. But the rise of digital information, the article continues to say, how did we get here? It questions. Generally, information wars involve two types of attack. One would be acquiring sensitive data and strategically linking it, and or waging deceptive public influence campaigns, which is pretty much what's going on in today's time. Both of these are playing out in real time on your social media feeds. If you were to step away from this presentation and go to your social media platform of preference, you probably will see it right now going on as we speak. But both types of these attacks have made waves in recent years. In one of the most notorious examples, Russian agents staged information attacks intended to influence the outcome of the 2016 presidential election in the United States, and Russian cyber troops reportedly hacked and leaked sensitive email communications from the Democratic National Committee. And it conducted an online propaganda campaign to influence American voters. Facebook agrees with the FBI's indictment that a Russian government contracted unit called the Internet Research Agency, in brackets the IRA, not the Irish Republican Army of yesterday that terrorized England for many years with a dirty bomb campaign, was responsible for exposing up to 150 million Americans or 2/3 of the electorate, to foreign propaganda via the social media platform. The indictment does not say whether Russia's meddling had an effect or an impact on the election's outcome, but the electoral and media system's vulnerability is a worry for everyone, regardless of partisan politics. Of course, not all leaks are clear acts of war. In some cases, leaks serve as a stepping stone towards accountability and to transparency, as it is now considered the case with the so-called Pentagon Papers that revealed the extent of the US secret war in Southeast Asia. Essentially, leaks are a grey area. Each leak must be examined on a case-by-case basis before it's declared an act of war. And I've said before, nothing leaks that wasn't meant to, and nobody blows whistles that are not meant to be heard. They are all playing a part and all have a purpose in the grand agenda. But targeted disinformation campaigns, however, are not a grey area. They are malicious and they are corrosive, and they are once again playing out in real time on a social media platform near you. These attacks, including disinformation, propaganda, and digital deception, are the focus of this research. And in recent years, information attacks have materialized quickly and can spread very, very rapidly via social media. 4 years ago, the World Economic Forum, good old WEF, always having their fingers in all the pies and all the agendas, it would seem, named the spread of misinformation online the 10th most significant trend to watch in 2014, and in 2018, events like Russian election meddling confirm the systematic state-sponsored deployment of digital information / digital disinformations by a foreign adversary. In other words, between a 2-year period, 2014 to 2016, a bad actor's ability to manipulate information on the internet went from barely being a top 10 concern among thought leaders to likely having a direct effect on the American democratic process. 2022, 6 years later, it is having a direct effect on the minds of the masses around the globe concerning the COVIDian crisis. Whether you're for it or whether you're against it, there's a very good chance one way or another you have been influenced and affected by a form of memetic propaganda designed and tailor-made for this particular crisis, and most of the narrative of the crisis is delivered in modern times via memetics on social media platforms. So not only American electoral campaigns can be influenced by memetics, the entire globe can be affected and influenced by them, as is the case in today's time. Russia is not only the only country responsible for distorting public opinion on the internet. A university study found instances of social media manipulation campaigns by organizations in at least 28 countries since the year 2010. One can only wonder just how many countries in 2022 are having these social media manipulation campaigns carried out in real time. Pretty much all of them, I would guess, although there's probably some very some impoverished third world countries where such an influence is yet to take a hold. But the study also highlighted that why am I having difficulties with that word? You know what it says. But these regimes are not the only or even the best at organized social media manipulation. Quite often is the case that mercenary military forces are often a little bit better equipped in sort of lack certain moral flexibility that genuine military might possess. But typically cross-border information wars are waged by state-sponsored cyber troops, of which the world has many, and the United States happens to have the most. Little map there of countries that have been influenced this way. But the world is already facing the uncomfortable reality that people are increasingly confusing fact and fiction, and I don't think we are facing the uncomfortable reality. I think the uncomfortable reality is that the fact is people are increasingly confusing fact and fiction from one another. And where exactly does fiction end and fact begin in today's times? One can further question. But however, the technologies behind the spread of disinformation and deception online are still in their infancy, although in terms of human infancy, 6 years later they would already be in preschool. And in technological terms, 6 years might as well be 6 centuries of advancement. One can only wonder just how advanced these technologies are right now. In fact, I sometimes wonder if artificial intelligent algorithms can sort of almost mirror a persona based purely on the personalities of an individual, given the data that you provide your cell device to work with. It can create somebody that is almost your identical soulmate, perhaps. But I've often had quite a few people that I've talked to privately on social media platforms in via messaging apps that I've sometimes suspected might sort of just be artificially intelligent generated characters that are just sort of keeping me happy and keeping me busy, or indulging me in conversation in order to harvest more data from me. But I digress there. But the spread of disinformation and deception were in their infancy in 2018, not so much the case now. And the problem of authenticating information is only starting to take shape, and is probably taken shape, but is becoming increasingly difficult as the technology creating it is becoming highly advanced. Put it simply, this is only the beginning. It hasn't begun, guys. We are in full, all-out memetic warfare. The social media platform battlegrounds right now in real time are abundant. With the memetic back and forth skirmishes between pro and against groups of individuals during this COVIDian era, and I do sort of believe that the COVID crisis was ushered in order to sort of really kickstart the meme wars on social media. And while sort of everyone's distracted with the disinformation campaigns and the memetics, the sort of real sort of tyranny is going on in the shadows in the background. And this might well be a period of, I mean, it is a period of reconnaissance, but they've probably decided who's compliant and who isn't compliant, and a little bit like in Nazi Germany when they used the IBM punch card system to sort of distinguish who was Aryan and who was not Aryan enough in the sort of members of society that needed train rides to re-education camps was compiled and listed, and once the categories were done, then they could go out and start rounding up those people that weren't Aryan enough to live in National Socialist Germany. And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about there. But maybe, judged on sort of content in stuff that you're sharing on social media, you may have already labelled yourself and targeted yourself for future re-education. And the article says that at the moment there isn't any Geneva Convention or United Nations treaty detailing how a nation or maybe an individual should define digital information attacks, or how they should proportionately retaliate as a result of being the victim of a information attack. But as new technologies spread, understanding the tactics and the circumstances that define the future of information/memetic warfare is now more critical than ever, guys. And this is really and truly why I am bringing so many. I don't want to seem like repeating the same message and becoming a meme of my own or a one-trick pony. This is carrying out in real time. This is going on today. Many people, some of you may even have involuntarily sort of picked a side and become part of the memetic military that is spreading this misinformation on social media feeds. And the only way that you can sort of be aware of it is if you're made aware of it, and there are very, very few people that I am aware of that are making anybody aware on the threat of military memetics, memetic warfare, and just exactly the true purpose and intent of social media, as myself has done in the past and am doing now. So the purpose of these many presentations on memetics is to make you as aware as you can possibly be on this subject. And trust me, guys, I have researched this a lot deeper than the content I've brought you and the information I've shared in these presentations. For you really to make of what you will. I'm not saying you have to believe what I'm saying or believe what you are seeing. I really share this information so you're aware of it, and now you're aware of it, you can literally make up your mind if or not memes are a true threat to society, or if everything I'm talking about regarding memetics is in complete horseshit. I don't care either way. I'm playing my part in trying to raise the awareness and spread the information and share my research with you all so you can do that. But the key elements, the article continues to say, of the future of digital information warfare can be found at this link there, which we've already seen before. And that's pretty much the end of that article. As I said, it is a little bit longer than the other ones, but it was a little bit more deeper and detailed into how the military memetics works, and maybe this will give you a greater understanding of military memetics and hopefully give you a better understanding of how you navigate your social media feed and how you behave on the social media feed. And I'm going to tell you guys, if there's a meme, then it's supporting a psychological operation. So that was it from LinkedIn.com, the article that was titled Memes That Kill: The Future of Information Warfare. It is now no longer in the future. It is in our present and contemporary days. That was this guy, this article wrapped up. There is a little bit more to look at before we do wrap this up, so stay tuned, guys, because the next article is coming up right now. Right, guys, so here at aspstrategic.org, the article reads, How Memes Are Becoming the New Frontier of Information Warfare. And this is a more recent article from February of 2020. And there you can see a picture of a cat in a rubber ring that may or may not have been used as a meme template, although I've never seen that particular meme template. Let me know if you have. But everyone has seen a meme, whether they know it or not. They are everywhere, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and the most popular ones make it off the internet and show up in newspapers, television shows, or even in films. And you've almost certainly seen Pepe the Frog, and if you haven't seen the classic woman yelling at a cat from 29, sooner or later you will. But despite seeming like nothing more than silly phrases written on cartoons, memes are becoming a cultural touchstone. And it was only recently, actually, that a very, very good friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, who is very much in the conspiratorial mindset, as of myself and possibly some of you, happened to share a meme that we're looking at now. And you can sort of see that the message of the meme is, we're just a bunch of adults sharing memes 24/7 a day. And once I saw her post this meme, I sort of posted in the comments, do you ever stop and ask as to why that is exactly? But as I said, you will not be, it will be an almost impossible task for you in today's modern society to be able to navigate a social media newsfeed without coming across a meme or multiple memes in the personal user experience. But they might appear as though they are just little pranks kids play online, yet they are anything but, and I've been telling you this for a long, long time, guys, they are anything but pranks and harmless fun designed just to titillate the humor of social media users. And as we've just read in the article prior to this one, back in 2016, the US presidential election was claimed to be won using the use of memes. And they go on to say that many memes were made by a Russian troll farm to influence that outcome. They don't necessarily need to be using Russian troll farms to create memes to manipulate political electoral campaigns. You can use them to create memes for almost any narrative or agenda you so desire. And Russian troll farms, armed with all your metadata, are easily within seconds can come up with the perfect image and the perfect wording that will appeal to minds that are already under the manipulation and influence of memes. But it wasn't an isolated incident either. Now troll farms are popping up more frequently. In November of last year, that would have been 2019, an undercover reporter revealed a new one in Poland. The memes it's producing focus on the aviation and defense industries and target key decision makers involved in the awarding of a major government defense contract. The memeing it has transpired was in fact political memeing. Those memes were a form of information warfare, or what would have been thought of in the past as a psychological operation. Information warfare is often about waging an influence campaign that can change behavior through unconventional memes or means, such as social media. And memes play a part in specific types of information warfare dubbed memetic warfare, something you should be able to tell me all about if you are an attentive regular offender of this channel. But early memetic warfare used a more Dawkinsian concept of memes. And in his 1976 book, The Selfish Gene, something we spoke about and heard from, we've even heard from Richard Dawkins himself on memes. Which is where he first coined the term meme for a cultural product that can replicate and spread. The meme concept had immediate and clear implications for the information warfare campaigners. Meme warfare now more often refers to using memes as individual weapons of information warfare. It's a form of disinformation that can be used to secure strategic goals. Disinformation campaigns go back to at least 1923, when Soviet Union had an office for disinformation campaigns. I'm not going to attempt to read the Russian version of that, and a term coined by Stalin to describe false information carefully constructed within the intention to deceive. And back then they didn't have social media, but they did have something known as red squads, which were sort of black op controlled opposition, communist agents, KGB agents that would sort of pose as members of the public and sort of spread these ideas amongst people. And once they sort of had a sort of group mentality, then those groups could be rounded up and sent off to the good old gulag. But he used them to coin the term, to describe false information that was carefully constructed with the intention to deceive, getting myself back on track. But the internet has ushered in an age when deception can be perpetuated on a mass scale with a simple click of a mouse. The West is desperately lagging in its memetic capability, and again, when sort of articles come in from the West, they always sort of suggest that the Soviets and the Chinese are so much more advanced in leading the world leaders in these, when it's probably the exact opposite. You always blame your closest enemy for the things that you're doing, as the smoke and mirrors misdirection thing is an age-old tactic. But if or not the United States is lacking in memetic capabilities, who knows? But with DARPA funding and researching for the United States government, I seriously doubt that it is lacking and lagging in its memetic capability. But the U.S. Marine Corps Major Michael P. Prosser proposed that NATO open a memetic warfare center in his 2006 thesis. Again, this is before 2011 and robotic technologies produced the handbook on memetic warfare. So as I've mentioned, it's been around a long time, guys, a very, very long time, and now we are witnessing exactly what memetic warfare looks like on our social media streams, and many people have inadvertently become frontline infantry that assist those artificial Russian troll farm bots in their aid to spread misinformation across the globe. But Dawkins, he looked at Dawkins' ideas of memes as units of cultural transmission that held the potential to be used like medicine to inoculate the enemy and generate popular support. He noted that information operations and psychological operations and strategic communications weren't using memes effectively. In the following decade, NATO never did open a meme warfare center, but the idea didn't go away, and it is now starting to gain traction again. At the same time, across the pond, DARPA funded Dr. Falkenstein, as we've already heard of, to investigate how it might weaponize memes. In his presentation to the Social Media for Defense Summit, Finkelstein recommended that memetic warfare for all public affairs units, the Central Intelligence Agency and the US Army, Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command. Whole lot of people there, guys, using military memetic tactics on your minds. And if you think you are above their influence, you might want to think again. I'm not going to say that I'm beyond the influence, but I am very, very aware, unlike many people, and seem to be one of the very, very, very few people speaking of the dangers of memetic warfare and the dangers of memes on any social media platform that I am a part of or have a presence on. But it wasn't until 2017 that the European Union and NATO established the European Centre of Excellence for Countering Hybrid Threats. While understanding memes as information warfare, and this falls within its remit, its purpose is more of an analytical than proactive. Currently, it seems the best form of defense is awareness, and this is why, guys, I keep telling and rabbiting on and putting up presentations on memetics, because your awareness to this will be your only shield in defense. That once you realize that you are being subjected to a memetic warfare misinformation campaign on your social media feeds, and you choose to ignore the memes that you see, then you're doing your part in preventing that information from being spread any further. But memes resemble traditional propaganda in a few ways. A hostile government can use them to spread malicious information in a way that is advantageous to it. But there are key differences too, because memes are a common way for people to express themselves online. And it's very easy to make memes without them being suspected as pieces of information warfare or pieces of propaganda. And they can be much more targeted. Traditional propaganda focuses on large groups of people who have some spatial or political link. The way the internet fingerprints users allows hostile actors to draw up their own lists looking for links even users don't know they share. Authoritarian regimes may be less susceptible to memetic warfare because they have more control over their social media system. China employs 20,000 to 50,000 internet police and an additional 250,000 trolls who spread pro-Beijing material domestically and abroad. Memetic warfare isn't just military, but civil as well. Some 1,200 TikTok channels are run by various Chinese civil authorities. TikTok Tavistock, give a shill a meme, but such as police stations, SWAT teams, traffic police, and prisons. They have produced more than 13,000 videos and amassed a combined 4.8 billion views. Its domestic attempt to control the online narrative by the security service, and it is unlikely that a meme such as that of the Chinese police are responsible for assimilating high-profile individuals. So they can kind of build an individual's MO based on the amount of memes and the
type of memes that they are sharing. And bearing in mind, guys, once you share this stuff to social media, it is always there to be seen, and the algorithm is already collected that data and information and sent it to powers to be in many private bidders that also pay good money for your information to target you with all sorts of memetic warfare. It might even be something just as harmless as an advertisement campaign, but we are subjected to non-stop memetic information campaigns online on a daily basis, and depending on how much time you spend each day online will determine how much time you are subjected to memetic warfare. But as I said, they can profile a person based on the memes that they have been sharing. Memes can also have dual functions, as there is always the dual technology purpose in any agenda and technology. As well as acting as a form of information warfare, they can also help normalize extreme behaviors through humor, for example. Memes can be a recruitment tool for white nationalist groups, or maybe anti-vax or anti-mask radicalization. The Christchurch mosque terrorist Brenton Tarrant frequently used 8chan. All Chan sites require users to submit images with text. As a result, these right-wing sites are a fertile breeding ground for memes that normalize extreme behavior and reinforce each other. Slowly, the memes seep out into more common areas of the internet, such as Twitter. That everybody on 4chan should be considered a terrorist itself is already a meme on 4chan. And terrorist activities and categorizing what is or isn't considered terrorist threat or terrorist activity is something that is also of particular interest, because it is only in recent years that the United States government has added talking about conspiracy theories as terrorist activities and a terrorist threat. So anybody that is sort of spreading the counter meme narrative on their social media platforms, this can be interpreted as spreading extreme terrorist material, and they can be treated, arrested, and detained as a terrorist, which has very different implications than being sort of arrested under, non-terrorist charges. For one, you can be detained indefinitely without charge. And one of the ways information warfare, back to the article, can be fought is simply by raising awareness about issues. Ironically, since it is not the youth who are most radicalized by social media, it's actually the older minds, there needs to be a concerted effort to make people more aware than ever that memes can be harmful. And no one can deny I haven't done my part in trying to make people more aware that memes are harmful, even at the expense of my own ridicule, and even at the expense of a viewer and follower on Twitter, Shadowfist24, who went out of his way to make memes of myself mocking me. Thanks for that, Shadowfist1984, wherever you may be. But as I said, I've been ridiculed and subjected to memes about myself for talking about the dangers of memes. So I'm playing my part in trying to raise awareness, and it's now up to you guys if or not you are retaining or resonating this information, and if you're finally starting to see the threat and true nature of memes as to what they are, then please, guys, go out of your way to do your very minimum efforts to try and, if not raise awareness, but control the amount of memeing that you do. In fact, try to go cold turkey. Try to go a whole week without sharing a meme if you can. But where were we in the article? Making people aware that they are harmful. Awareness that a stranger on Twitter may in fact be a bot or a paid troll or a shill hasn't stopped hostile actors from achieving their goals. They're not trying to win debates online by making convincing arguments, but to amplify the loudest voices in a fight, deepening the divisions between us. So there you have it, guys. That was the strategist, sorry about that, article on how memes are becoming the new frontier of informational warfare, and thus concludes the pre-recorded feature presentation part of this live stream. We will be heading over to the SVP Ship Video Productions studio live, where we can chat, debate, and interact with one another in real time about what we've just seen. So if you want to go and take a bathroom break, you want to go and roll yourself a little something to smoke, or pour yourself something to drink, now is the time to do so, as we take a small interlude before we do return live and alive in the studio. If you found this evening's stream on memetics particularly interested, and you'd like to know more about memetics, head on over to my YouTube channel, click on the playlist links, scroll yourself down, and you will find a playlist titled Memetics, where you can watch such previous live streams as Meme Control, Meme K Ultra, Memetic Mind Control, Wars, Your Mind is the Battlefield, Copy and Paste but Change What the Bunny is Holding, Memetic Mind Control, for hours and hours of information on the topic of military memetics and memetic warfare. Please be sure to check out Reality Decoded's playlist section and click on the Memetics playlist for your entertainment, information, and educational purposes.
Wake up to reality. Nothing ever goes as planned in this accursed world. The longer you live, the more you will realize that the only things that truly exist in this reality are merely pain, suffering, and futility. Listen. Everywhere you look in this world, wherever there is light, there will always be shadows